Doctors and nurses of Reddit, have you ever witnessed a couple have a child that was obviously not the father's? If so, what happened? My husband and I were visiting our friends who just had a baby. We are the godparents, and we were standing in the hallway talking to both sets of grandparents. Well, apparently the hospital has a rule that only 5 visitors may be present in the hallway, but the security guard had let all 6 of us in for some reason and we didn't realize it. This nasty nurse comes up to us, notes that there are 6 of us, tells us someone will have to leave immediately, and then turns to my husband and says, "Oh, are you the daddy?" Without missing a beat, he says, "That's what we're all trying to figure out here." She gets a look of horror on her face and backs away. Well, he's got that dad jokes ready to go, lol. My aunt is a nurse in the maternity ward. She had a couple come in where they were both very black. Lady has baby and it is white AF. Like, totally pale, no trace of any pigment. They put the baby on her mom and the mom starts yelling about how this isn't her baby and they stole her baby. In all fairness, you can be very confused during after delivery. It wasn't stupidity, just sobbing and freaking out, and the father is just sitting there and looks very confused because even he's realizing that even if she did cheat, there is no way the baby would be that white. The doctor and nurses are trying to assure her that this is her baby and the skin usually darkens later. Come to find out, when he called his mom, she pointed out that they have a second cousin who is albino and maybe baby got that gene. Turns out that's what happened, baby was albino. Finally, one happy ending in this entire thread. I worked labor and delivery. Had a very young mother come in, accompanied by her parents. She was just 12-13 and parents looked stuffy and kept telling her should have had an abortion, she was too young, etc. Her mother was silent the whole time but leaked tears for her constantly. While she labored, I received a call from a very young boy who said he was her boyfriend. His trembly voice explained that her father wouldn't come to the hospital. I explained that I couldn't give out information but he could talk to her afterward. I went in, told her he had called and she showed me a picture of him. He was white, straight red hair, pimply and tiny, the runt of the litter. About an hour later, her phys ed teacher stopped by to check on her, which I thought was odd. We didn't get many teachers checking on students. He was as opposite of the boyfriend as he could get. Tall, very muscular, beautiful smile, and rich, chocolate brown skin. The girl's father accompanied her to the delivery room. Odd, but okay. The more she pushed, the louder she cried. In between, she kept saying sorry daddy. Finally, out slid a very beautiful, chocolate brown baby boy. I thought her father was going to pass the frick out on my delivery room floor. I did my usual "it's a boy" and said nothing else. I handed him off to a nursery nurse and got dad a chair. The new mom said "I'm sorry daddy" over and over again. Her mom, now frowned up, came to see the baby, took one look, started asking God for forgiveness, and left. I sent her dad home a short bit later, admonishing him to react at home, not here. I set up a time for our counselor to meet with him before I left. After talking to new mom, she admitted her gym teacher had been giving her special treatment. I explained sex to her and she said she'd only kissed the BFF, but had stayed after school to be with her gym teacher. I'm state mandated to report child abuse, so I did. 2 weeks later, with her world shattered, her baby was given up for adoption. I wish her the best. Of note, this was 1989. Ugh. I've been reading this thread every now and then today and this one is seriously one of the worst ones I've read. It seems like the poor thing didn't even realize that something bad had happened to her. I hope she's okay and not suffering too much. Worked in the army hospital on featuring Lewis. A woman came in for belly pain and we found out and told her she was 10 weeks pregnant. The husband at the bedside started laughing, grabbed his coat and left the room explaining to us that he had been in Afghanistan until 3 weeks prior. He looked back at her and just said, "Well, that's that Brittany." I always liked how classily he left her while she just silently stared off into space. When my son was born they took my blood and his for a paternity test. My wife flipped. The nurse explained that if my son came back not mine they would have to ship her off to a local civilian hospital per whatever regulation they had to follow army hospital. She still talks about it to this day. I work in anesthesia. One of my colleagues had someone vaginally deliver a baby with Steve's lunchbox tattooed above the birth canal. The OB-GYN said to the father after the delivery, Congratulations, Steve. The guy replied that his name was indeed not Steve. Don't know if that counts. That was a really poor tattoo choice. I had a vasectomy. While chatting with the doctor, he told me about another patient. This guy had 3 kids and came in for the snip because he and his wife decided they were done having children. The doc opened up his sack and found nothing to snip. This guy was born without the ability to have any children. The poor doctor had to explain to him what happened. Imagine finding that out that way. This is hardcore. Had a lesbian couple come in. One of them was pregnant. Neither knew. Judging from all the screaming, this information was poorly received. One of my favorite cousins just did 23andMe with her dad and discovered that they were not biologically related at all. This is especially horrible because my aunt, her mother, is one of the most ridiculously zealous and judgmental people I have ever met. She screams at the baby cousins when they don't behave perfectly. She literally threw a pocket Bible at a woman in a grocery store after the woman was on the phone and said crap or something. And she likes to send me unsolicited long letters about God's plan for my life. Surprisingly, her husband is the most fun and laid back person I've ever met. He did not deserve this, or her. I had the opposite happen. Sort of. My wife and I are both brown skinned, dark haired, half Mexicans, and our moms are both 100% white blondes with blue and green eyes. So we sort of knew it was a crapshoot with our baby, but the nurse who was assisting with delivery had no idea. At one point she gets sort of nervous and calls for help, and another, I guess more senior nurse, came in and nodded and came over to talk to me. I thought there was something wrong with the baby as she comes over and stumbles through some questions. So I was the father and no one else was coming, etc. Then finally she awkwardly asks if either of us happened to be blonde growing up. I said yeah I was, and both the baby's grandparents are blonde as they come, and this wave of relief went over her and she brought me over to see this blonde as heck crowning baby head. It's funny because he looks just like me if you applied a gringo Instagram filter. We often get awkward questions about his heritage and my wife always hits them with yeah, we're not sure if he's mine. It's always funny to see people nod for a moment and then go wait what? Sometimes the copier is just low on toner. Not in the hospital, but a friend and his GF were on again off again and she got pregnant. She swears it's his. He wants a paternity test. He moves in with her and her mom. She has the baby. Take the test. Test is taking a while to come back. Him and his family are over the moon with the baby. Kinda forget about it. Mentions it to GF's mom one day and she says oh yeah, she didn't tell you. Came back a while ago. Totally your baby, awesome. All is well. A few months later they're moving out and he finds the test in a box. Not his baby. I used to work in the newborn nursery at a hospital. We got the babies right from delivery, cleaned them up, footprinted them, checked vitals, etc. Dads usually came in with the newborns. This dad comes in with this baby. Dad is white, mom is white, baby is very obviously not white. The dad was very quiet standing next to this baby, watching us clean it up. He says quietly, I don't think this is my baby. You could tell he was absolutely devastated. We advised him not to sign the birth certificate until he was sure. Not sure what happened after we sent the baby back out to mom, but I felt awful for the guy. I can feel his sadness through the text. My best friend was dating a girl and knocked her up. They got engaged and planned to get married right after the baby was born. There were about 10 of us in the waiting room waiting for her to crank out the baby. It was essentially her parents. His were in another state, some of her friends, and some of ours. After sitting there for about 2 hours, he walks out with a smirk on his face and says let's go. We all thought something horrible had happened. Her friends ask how the baby is, and he said fine, but black. He motioned for us to go, so we followed him. In the parking garage, he tells us to follow him to his apartment, then sends me a text asking I could put him up for a while. We literally moved him out of his apartment and into my spare bedroom in like an hour tops. Her parents didn't know who to be mad at. The confusion on their faces when he told them the baby was black was priceless. Whoa, till it's not only in American TV shows where all the friends wait at the hospital for the baby to be delivered. I didn't realize that it happened in real life. I was blood typing a newborn once. Mum was an O+, baby was AB+, which is more or less not possible. I immediately panicked because Jesus God, they mixed up the babies. Someone has the wrong baby. We're gonna get sued. They're gonna have to genetic test the entire nursery. What if they subpoena me for being the idiot who discovered the problem? I don't have insurance. What if they sue me? After repeating the test 3 times, I called the floor and told them that they'd either drawn the wrong baby's blood or they'd switched babies because mom couldn't be the baby's mother. Lol, no, it was a donor egg. The redraw matched fine. Everyone was where they were supposed to be. Oh god, my heart. Though, you'd think they might mention something important like that. My wife is an RN hospital supervisor. Code yellow is the code over the intercom for security. Large male nurses needed. It rarely ever happens, but every now and then over the speakers you hear a code yellow. Labor and delivery. You know the reason. From reading other subs, I'd guess sometimes it's also family, grandmas to be, who won't leave the delivery room or labor ward. I used to work with a guy whose wife was pregnant. Near time for delivery, everyone at our place of business had a big party with gifts, money, etc. So big day comes, water breaks, they get in car to go to hospital. She breaks the news on the way there. It's not his, the kid is another race, and if he could just drop her off at the hospital and then leave, that would be great. He took a few days off work, found a new apartment, moved out, filed divorce, etc. He called into work and told someone what happened. News spread pretty fast. All congratulations cards, etc. were cleaned up and thrown away. Everyone was very sensitive to his pain, except, somehow, I don't know how, I did not get the news. So on his first day back, I walked into the office he shared with 6-7 other guys and said, hey daddy-o, how's fatherhood so far? Getting any sleep? Got some pictures? Let's see the little tyke. He slowly lifted his head to look at me with a painful look. The room was dead silent. One of his workmates stood up, grabbed my arm and walked me out of the room, shushing me. What happened? I asked. Did it die? What's the problem? When he told me I about died myself. I still feel bad for the dude and it's been 30 years. Hey daddy Olmeo, nice one. My fiance's father is almost certainly not his biological dad. His mom was just a genuinely terrible human being who didn't even try to hide the fact she was cheating. But his dad loved him from the second he was born, and when the mom decided 4 years later she just didn't want the kid anymore, she just gave him to his dad and rode off. Jay's dad ended up getting married and they tried for kids before finding out his sperm count was too low to ever father children. They ended up adopting many years later. He sat my fiancé down when my fiancé was 13 and told him the truth, and that if Jay wanted to test they would, but it was up to him. Jay cried and told him he just wanted him to be his dad, and that was the end of that. Man, this is a great story. What an awesome dad he has. I'm not a nurse. My professor was an L&D nurse and she once saw a man running between 2 delivery rooms. Both women he had impregnated went into labor and gave birth the same day. Supposedly the one he was married to was angry because the woman he cheated with was impregnated after the wife but had her kid 10 minutes before the wife. L&D is apparently the most drama-filled section of hospitals. My so is planning to be a nurse and he's going to work in L&D neonatal this year, and I'm excited to hear any dramatic stories. This happened when we went in to wait for my sister to give birth. Both families were there and it was super awkward. Fortunately he was not even dating either girl that was in there having his baby. My grandmother was a nurse. Once she was assisting with delivering a baby and the ostensible father commented that the child looked good for a premature baby. Without thinking, my grandmother told the truth. That baby is not premature. So I guess I know where I get my social obliviousness from. I don't think that's social obliviousness. Like, there's no obligation to sit there and consider how someone could possibly be lying so you could cover it up for them. If their dumbass lies about something that easily blown open, they deserve to get it blown open. A coworker's aunt just found out her dad wasn't actually her dad. So she was really big into genealogy and had mapped out her family tree as far as she could go. She took one of those ancestry DNA tests about 2 months ago, and her father's side didn't line up with what she was expecting. In fact, she didn't recognize a single name that she was matched with paternally. She casually asked her dad if he knew any of the names, and he recognized the surname of the maintenance man at the apartment complex where he and his wife, aunt's mom, lived shortly after they had gotten married. Claimed he was a lousy repairman who always flirted with his wife, etc. Aunt's mom had passed away a few years ago, so she decided to not tell her dad the news. My mom's friend knew her parents had a third child and gave it away, so she and her sister used an online DNA test to find them. They ended up learning they have different dads. Nurse here once had a couple come in, just them. The father was black and the mother was white. The father was so involved, so ecstatic about him becoming a father for the second time with this woman. Nothing really seemed off, until she started pushing. The baby girl came out completely white, blonde hair and blue eyes. Usually black babies come out a little pale, but this was just straight out white. We had to escort the father out for fear of him becoming violent, but he just sat outside the room, on the ground with his face in his hands. That was one of the saddest moments I think I've ever seen with a father, besides stillbirth. Odd thing after though, the mom didn't want the baby and wanted nothing to do with the father, probably out of guilt. So she left the responsibility of this baby and their other 2-year-old boy to this man who didn't even question taking on this child. You have been visited by Wall Doggo. Subscribe to Updoot Reddit and you will have good luck for 2 weeks. I hope you enjoyed the video. I post new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.